genre.
What's up? Welcome back to the Doctor's Companion presents Doctor Who, The Long Way Round, the weekly podcast where we review and discuss every episode of Doctor Who, one doctor at a time. I'm Nick Jimenez.
I'm Scott Corelli.
And I'm Cass Fredrickson.
And today on the show, we'll be discussing The Enemy of the World, the Second Doctor's 11th story.
Mm-hmm.
All of it. We watched all of it.
Well, we did,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, all 6 episodes. So this, The Enemy of the World, premiered December 23rd, 1967, and ran through January 27th, 1968. We are, halfway through. This is like the halfway point, basically. This and the Ice Warriors are like the halfway point. No, I don't know. This
Of Troughton?
This actually, I think this is like close to the halfway point of Troughton, but we're halfway through season 5 of the show. This is written by David Whitaker, which is funny because we just talked about him leaving as a script editor last week on the show. He wrote this episode, and it was directed by Barry Letts, which is his first time working for the show, his first contribution. This is the very tail end of the Innes Lloyd Peter Bryant era, in which Innes Lloyd produced and Peter Bryant story edited. So this was conceived after Whitaker had written Evil of the Daleks, which was a big hit. And this time he was like, what if I didn't write the Daleks? And they were like, okay. And so he came up with this idea of a Dr. Doppelganger, and Patrick Troughton was very excited to take on the dual roles of the Second Doctor and Salamander, Ramon Salamander. But he was excited, but he regretted that there wasn't more physical differences between the two characters. But he did push for the sort of slight unibrow that Ramon
Typical
has.
actor.
Yeah, because he wanted a little something else.
Gotta have a funny little wig or a funny little scar, huh?
Yeah. But he did. He had just like he loved playing this. He loved this episode. I'm not sure, but I seem to remember that this was Troughton's favorite episode of his era. But I'm not positive. So Barry Letts hired as director, first contribution to the show. Whitaker's scripts all ran sort of short and contained too much dialogue and too little action, according to producer Innes Lloyd. And so Letts worked with assistant script editor Derek Sherwin to improve the story, starting with the episode 1 chase sequence, which was added during this process. Originally, it was not an abandoned beach. It was like they landed in like a holiday village. There was like lots of people, lots of extras. And so they were like, that's expensive and boring. What if instead we did this other thing that was like a chase and exciting and a lot less people that we have to pay to be there. So that's what they did. And Letts also hired actress Mary Peach who was cast as Astrid. She is from South Africa. But in the original Whittaker scripts, Astrid was basically non-existent in episodes 5 and 6. So she almost quit when she got the scripts. But Letts liked her so much that he again worked with Derek Sherwin to restructure the episodes to include Astrid more prominently in episodes 5 and 6, so that she would agree to stay. And this was also, doing all of this work with Letts led to Sherwin being promoted to head script editor, taking over for Peter Bryant, who was it? Peter Bryant? Yeah, Peter Bryant, who was promoted to producer when Innes Lloyd decided that this was his final story. So Innes Lloyd leaves the show after this, and Peter Bryant becomes producer, and Sherwin becomes head script editor. And at this time, Sherwin was like, I mean, I'll do it, but I don't want to stay on very long. I will agree to a season if you will allow me to hire anyone I want as my assistant script editor, so that I can train someone quickly to take my place after a season. And they were like, great, who do you want to hire? And he was like, I've got this friend, his name's Terrence Dix, and I want him to be my assistant. And so Terrence Dix joined the show shortly after this episode to be the new assistant script editor, and would quickly replace Sherwin in season, what is that, season 7? So,
yes.
Also at this time, Troughton agreed to a third season, but was sort of like lamenting the long schedule, the thing that basically killed William Hartnell, which is like 46 episodes a year. That's how many episodes they were making. And
Jesus.
Yeah, and Troughton was talking about like, hey, look, the show's getting a little more ambitious. And we're now at the point where, I'm doing rehearsals, and then on my days off, I'm lucky if I get my days off, because you guys want me to come and shoot all of this extra footage that is not part of our studio sessions. And so I need a break. Like, we wouldn't have to take so many vacations if, like, this stuff was spaced out a little bit more and we actually got our real days off and all this stuff. And he was talking about this at the same time that Barry Letts was having a sort of a production meeting about this episode, and Barry Letts like spoke up and was like, yeah, if you guys cut back your schedule from 46 episodes per year, back to back to back to back, only leaving, I think that's 6 weeks of vacation. If you cut that back to 26 episodes per year, that would allow production to have a week between each serial for pre-production rehearsals and any pre-shoots that needed to happen. And it would be like really helpful. And Troughton was like, yeah, I'll sign on for a third season if we do that next season. And they were like, okay, great. Let's figure that out and do that. And friends, that's how Barry Letts became producer of the show.
Wow.
He basically proposed a whole new production schedule, and it works so well in the next season, in Troughton's third season, season 6 of the show, that they were like, this guy should be the producer of the show. And
workflow,
yep.
lads. That's the secret.
But yeah, it was Peter Bryant ends up leaving the show with Sherwin, Derek Sherwin, and and then that's how we get the Letts and Dix era. Letts and Dix.
Like two
Letts and Dix and lots of guns.
Yep.
That's what we
is
call.
Is that what your book's going to be called?
If I do a book about the Pertwee era, you're goddamn right it will be.
Look back at the Pertwee era by Scott.
Yeah. This story was also notable for being the final story overseen by BBC head of drama Sidney Newman. whose contract with the BBC ended at the end of this year. And he shortly went back to his native Canada, where he eventually died in 1997 from a heart attack. But he was old at that point. It's fine. It's normal to die at that age, I would say.
Cruel but normal, I guess.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, what can you do? And then the final bit of info doesn't happen until 2013, because you see, The Enemy of the World was one of the serials that was missing every entry except for episode 3. They had like a really rough looking version of episode 3, and it was the only one that existed. And then at some point in the like early teens, like 2012, something like that, all of the rest of the episodes, the entirety of Enemy of the World, including a better copy of episode 3, were found in Nigeria at a relay station, and was released on Doctor Who Day for the 50th anniversary in 2013, and it was a big deal because I can't imagine this episode be holding up in reconstruction style, because it is, even with like the action that exists, it is a lot of talking, which you'd think like, oh yeah, that would be good for the reconstruction, but it's not. It makes it really, really boring because you're not getting any of the like facial acting and stuff. So it's just, I think it's a real treat to see a phenomenal Patrick Troughton performance like this, and getting all of it. We get to see the whole thing, soup to nuts, and it's just really nice that we have and that's to say nothing of the fact that like full Troughton serials are few and far between.
Right.
So it's just really nice watching an episode with a story with no missing episodes in the Troughton era. It's just really cool. So I love The Enemy of the World. I think it whips ass. I don't know how you guys feel about it. Nick, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on The Enemy of the World?
Yeah, no, I fucked with this. Yeah, was great. and it's like you said, Scott, like this is some of the best acting I've seen in classic Who, and so much is expressed in like, a close up of an actor shifting his eyes or discovering something. So it's so great. It really speaks to the value of seeking out and preserving endangered media like this, because you can save, like you said, Patrick Troughton's really show-stopping performance in this story.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Cass?
Yeah, no, I the only time I had, quote, seen this was a reconstruction, like,
oh shit,
prior to 2013.
Yeah.
And I didn't remember any of it. Like, I think I listened to it out of like obligation, because I was like doing the classic Who blog at the time. And this, like I think multiple times when I was watching this, I like out loud was just like, oh man, this story fucks. Like, it's so good. Like, and we'll talk about it, but like the balance of like the political intrigue with like the sci-fi element that kind of like sneaks up on you at the end. Just, it's really, really well done. And I am not surprised that like Barry Letts was involved in this, because like, especially when you were talking about the opening chase sequence, like all of Pertwee's era is just car chase sequences basically. So I'm just like, oh yeah, there it is. So that was fun. But yeah, no, this is great. This is a great time. I'm glad this exists.
The Enemy of the World slaps. It just slaps. It's so good. All right. Well, let's get into it. Because Nick, I'm curious about your feelings on. I mean, obviously it was a different time, but what are your feelings
I get
on? It. Yeah, on yeah. Okay, those are your thoughts on.
Oh no!
Salamander?
No, out loud. I was like, "What is he talking?" Oh yeah, the accent.
Yeah.
I'll say this: it took me like halfway through episode 1, or do we even meet Salamander in episode 1?
Only in a video, I think.
Okay, then it definitely was in episode 2. Halfway through episode 2, it struck me that he was supposed to be that he was Latin coded. I guess that he was doing a Spanish accent. I kind of was getting like French sometimes, but then also Dracula very frequently.
I got a lot of Father Guido Sarducci.
Yes, good.
The SNL
Cass,
character.
Does that mean anything to you, Cass?
Yeah. Have you ever, Cass? Have you ever seen Casper? The movie Casper from the 90s.
Like the ghost.
Yeah.
Like the ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not in a really long time.
Yeah.
Isn't he also in Atlantis?
Is he?
He's a guy that talks like this. Hey, it's me. I'm a go.
Oh yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's who Ramon Salamander reminds me of is Father Guido Sarducci. Yeah.
Oh man. It reminded me there's this really great episode of The Twilight Zone. I think it's golly, I think it might be Peter Falk, but it's like a really famous white actor playing like a Castro stand-in. And it's like his descent into madness in a Twilight Zone kind of way. And it's like a chamber room drama set in like Cuba, basically. And I remember being very arrested by that performance, and then later learning that, yeah, there is some kind of modern day controversy to some of being like, oh, well, is that brown face or whatever? But Ramon Salamander was as engaging a performance as it was. I never really took him seriously at all in any kind of like racial way, I guess. Because he sounded like Dracula to me a lot of the time.
Yeah. It's interesting because he's supposed to be like Mexican, like full blood Mexican.
Oaxaca, they say.
Yeah.
Or Yucatan City, I think, or something. Yeah.
Right. Which is interesting. But yeah, our story begins in 2018, Cass.
2018. 2018 Australia. There is some primo frolicking.
Oh God.
Like definition of the word frolicking in this.
He's just so happy.
Yes.
He loves a beach day.
He does. Is this the only time we get like a Doctor Who quote unquote beach episode? Like, I know it doesn't.
Yeah, like
but
the
it's
anime
only
trope.
like 5 minutes. Yeah. He like goes for a swim.
Yeah.
Scott, the beach episode, I guess like the Western equivalent is like, you know that episode of Avatar where it's like the Fire Nation and they're playing volleyball?
Sure.
And it's like, it's just vibes.
Yeah.
Like that happens kind of, that's like a stock episode.
Like all the
type.
time. And
yeah. I mean, that's a stock issue of the X-Men. You know, they play baseball or go to the beach.
True.
Or,
Very true.
That's true.
We need more of it in Doctor Who for sure.
So they arrive on this beach. There's a mysterious hovercraft.
Take a look at this. Some idiot's doing a jig.
Right?
Stripping down to his little pantaloons.
Yeah.
I love that Victoria, because she's like from the Victorian era, is like, oh my God, you'll catch your death if you go into water. Like, that was really funny. But so these guys in the hovercraft in the far distant future of 2018 are kind of scoping out the Doctor, and they mistake him for someone else.
Right.
These
guys are maybe the most 1960s future looking guys I've ever seen in anything. Like
very
when they're
Jack
like
Kirby, very Johnny Quest.
Yeah, but also like very like 1960s sci-fi movie, like, you know, very like Day the Earth Stood Still, or Lost in Space.
Lost in Space.
Yeah.
You know what's really cool about the doctors frolicking in this, I'll say, is I remember now watching it, is at the time I'm like, well, this has to be a grift. He has to have something up his sleeve. But in retrospect, now it's like, no, I guess he was just like really feeling himself in that moment.
Yeah. I will say it does not look warm. It looks very chilly.
Cold.
It looks extremely
frigid.
cold. Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like the
Obviously
New Earth
they
beach.
didn't film it in Australia.
Yeah.
Right.
Very
true.
But these men, they start chasing the Doctor and Jamie and Victoria. They start shooting at him.
Jamie gets to punch one of them, which is like a big moment.
And he says Brigadoon like a battle cry.
Yeah.
Like he's in Street Fighter.
Everybody is so good in this. Like, I don't think there's a loser in the bunch in this story. Like everybody is like killing it in this episode, I think.
Well,
oh man, I can't wait to talk about my favorite character ever in like episode 3.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes, yeah, I think I know who you mean.
Yeah.
But with the you'll catch your death and like Brigadoon, like and the Doctor frolicking on the beach, I'm just thinking like, what a lovely little found family this is.
Yeah. Oh man. So good.
The Doctor and Jamie and Victoria, they are rescued by a woman in a helicopter.
Named
Jamie
Astrid.
and Victoria. Yes, named Astrid. Yeah. So when I was watching this, Norman was kind of like popping in and out of the room, and he was like, is the character Astrid from Voyage of the Damned
yeah,
supposed to be like, because she has the same hair.
Oh, you're right, she does. I wonder if it's
I was like, I don't know.
I don't know if she's a reference or not. What was her name? Like Astrid Perth or something like that?
Astrid Peth?
Peth?
Perth? I don't know.
Astrid
that sounds
Sydney.
right.
Yeah, it's Peth. It is Peth. Wow. Totally pulled that out of my butt.
Nice.
Wow. I don't know how I remembered her full name. That is insane. Let me see. I'm going to search for... I just searched for enemy on her page, and it's not coming up, so I don't think...
Interesting.
I don't think it's a reference. I think it's just a coincidence.
Cosmic coinkydink.
Yeah. So she rescues them in a helicopter. Jamie and Victoria have no idea what a helicopter is.
And the Doctor's not explaining it. Like, he's just
he's just
it's a chopper, a whirly bird.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's not explaining anything. They're both from the past.
Right? The men who are pursuing them shoot the helicopter's fuel tank, which is important later.
Yeah. Astrid says
lands...
like, "Oh, we're not safe. We could die at any moment."
Yeah, this might blow up at any moment. And I'm just like, oh. They land. I think it's at her house or like the office she works at.
Yeah.
She has like a wound in her arm because she got shot at.
Mm-hmm. The Doctor cleans it up with some saline solution.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
And she, he wants to know why these people were trying to like kill them, and she's just like, I'll take you to my employer. He'll explain everything. The Doctor is unsure about whether or not he should do this. In the meantime, the 3 men have caught up with them.
Which, like, how slow was that helicopter?
Yeah, I don't know.
I felt like they were going a pretty good distance. Like, I can't believe this car caught up to them this quickly.
It's like a hovercraft, though. Like,
oh, right. Yeah. Shouldn't it go slower than a car, then?
Maybe. It's the future.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
I guess that's true.
2018.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2018. They like surround the building. There's like a shootout. And Astrid gets them out of there. They do go to her employer, whose name is Giles Kent. And he tells the Doctor that he looks uncannily like this man named Salamander, who is trying to kind of position himself to take over the world government. And he was like part of that inner circle and then he was like disgraced and cast out, and so now he's trying to like basically cause Salamander's downfall and like his expulsion from politics. And the Doctor's just like, I don't know, this sounds like something I don't want to be involved in. And in the meantime, there's a man named Donald Bruce, the security officer, who just shows up. And Kent convinces the Doctor to impersonate Salamander so that like they're not arrested or like there's like a lot at stake. And then the episode ends with the Doctor disguised as Salamander like coming out and telling the security officer what for.
Yeah. I love Troughton playing the Doctor of like, he's like, no, I can't, but I do love an accent. I like breaking them down and trying to figure them out. I could probably do it with time, like just like that whole
8 days is what he says.
Yeah, I just love it. I love his whole like, oh, I couldn't. Well. He's so good. There's also that great line where he says, well, I don't know if he's such a bad guy, and he's quite handsome. Wouldn't you say, Jamie?
Right?
I was like, why are you singling out Jamie? I just wanted to like shout gay, like
say the man's handsome, Jamie.
Look me in the eyes when you do it. I like the idea that Jamie and the Doctor have like a Dean Pelton relationship, like from Community.
Oh my God.
I'll say now, I love how every cliffhanger in this serial is based in character.
True.
It's a character making a discovery or hiding a secret or learning something, and it's they were so elegant is the word that kept coming up in my head.
Yeah.
Like there isn't like there's not like the shock value to it,
right?
So for me, it all kind of blends together. But like, yeah, no, I think that's really smart.
There's no monster in this one,
right?
It's Salamander.
The monster is politics.
Right. The monster. Yeah, the monster is politics. Fascism.
Something I wish the episode had kind of gone deeper in that I really loved in these early episodes is it sort of placed the Doctor in a kind of a existential dilemma of he's like, well, I don't know that you guys are telling the truth. Like, what's your agenda? Like, am I helping the right side? I'm looking for evidence. I'm looking before I decide which side of this fulcrum I'm going to fall on. And yeah, Salamander being a big goofy Bond villain ended up kind of burying that a little bit, but
yeah. I feel like, yeah, that's not something that happens a lot. Like you'll see like the Doctor choosing a side and being like, chose the wrong side. Okay, now I got to flip. I got to flip over to the other guys. You'll see that a bunch of times, but you never see him being like, nope, I am not making a decision until I get all the facts. That like never happens, I think, in the show. So it's really cool to see. You're right, Nick, and I wish they would play with that a little bit more, of him being sort of like an impartial third party.
Because that's kind of like that's what like the first Doctor is supposed to be, and then he kind of like grows out of it. For better or worse. Like he's like, I'm not supposed to be involved, but then he ends up getting involved anyway.
Right.
And like feeling the pressure of being like, oh shit, like I don't know, like are they right? Is this guy a rising authoritarian threat? But what if they're wrong? Like what if I'm supplying terrorists? Like the stakes feel very high to him.
Yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah, I like that he values Jamie and Victoria's opinion too. Like he asks them what they think.
Yeah, he doesn't discount them the way a lot of other doctors would.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you're from the past, you don't know anything. It's like, no, what do you think? What do you think of all of this that's happening? Because it's happening to all three of them.
Yeah, it's true.
But episode 2, security officer Bruce is very confused by his boss being here when he's supposed to be in Central Europe. And there's a lot of the tension is obviously like, oh, the doctor, like, is the doctor going to trick this person into believing like
Hello,
he is who he says he is.
I am Salamander. Look at me.
Yeah. The doctor does convince him that he's Salamander. He goes away, and he ultimately he decides to help them, but only to like gather more facts. So he's like, okay, well, I'll go to this research center and hopefully there's answers there. And there's a little like infiltration plan that Astrid has cooked up. So she gives Jamie and Victoria these passes. They go to Central Europe. It only takes them a couple hours because it's the future and they travel by rocket. Which I love. They're just like very casually like, oh, it's only 2 hours by rocket. And they infiltrate Salamander's like home base in Central Europe, where he's having a meeting with what's this person's name?
The
Danish?
nervous guy. Yeah.
There's there's a guy that's in control of the zone. His name is Danish, and then there's like another guy whose name is Federin. I'm not sure what role he plays previously. But so Salamander is busy trying to convince this person that these long dormant volcanoes are going to erupt. And Dennis is like, no, you're full of shit. Like, what are you talking about? And then like he leaves the meeting, and then like 5 minutes later the volcanoes erupt. And there's excellent stock footage of like buildings collapsing and like lava. And like Salamander is like, he's happy about his prediction, quote unquote prediction, being correct, but he's also like very gleeful about like all of this destruction happening, which is very, very suspect.
Pretty sus.
We meet Faria, who I really like. Faria is Salamander's taste tester, basically. Like she eats food before it gets to him to make sure it's not poisoned. And she kind of has like this really like very cruel like back and forth with Federin about like, because he's like drinking something and he's like, oh yeah, how do you work for Salamander? She's just like, oh, I'm his taste tester. I hope the drink's good because I didn't have a chance to test it yet. And he like freaks out.
Yeah. I love Faria. She was definitely, he was great too. But yeah, Faria was like a great supporting performance.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Not my favorite character, but we're getting to him.
No. So the plan that Jamie and Victoria are doing, like Jamie, he jumps into like this balcony area where like Salamander and Federin and Faria are. He like takes a guard, like the gun from a guard, like points it at the group like he's going to use it, and then he throws I think it's supposed to be like a radio or a telephone. He like throws it, tells everyone to get down, and then it like blows up in the distance. And he's just like, I just saved your life. There was like this was going to explode. It's really fucking cool.
Yeah, for sure.
I love
Salamander
Jamie
thinks
when
so
he's
too.
like, yeah, I like Jamie when he's an action hero. So Salamander hires him on the spot because he's just that badass. And he's like, oh, well, I'm here on holiday with my girlfriend, and I don't want to intrude. And he's just like, no, like we'll hire your girlfriend too.
And end your holiday prematurely forever.
Right. Yeah. You'll make a lot of money.
Get this man out of the skirt.
So Jamie becomes a guard, and they put Victoria in the kitchen.
Hell yeah.
And the Danish, the controller of this region, basically comes back and is just like he confronts Salamander about the volcanoes, and then Salamander is just like, I told you this was going to happen. You could have done something about it. Arrest this man. So he's like held hostage in the house, the estate or whatever. And then this veteran guy is poised to take his place.
And he has a file on Fitterin. Because Fitteren's like, I don't want to overthrow Danish. Like, everyone loves Danish. He's like, well, you are going to help me overthrow him because I have this big file of all the bad stuff that you've done.
Of like secrets and stuff. Like, I don't, like scandal. I don't know. I just like that this is a really slow burn political thriller.
But it never isn't entertaining, you know?
Right.
Like, it's like the best kind of slow burn. We're like,
yes.
Yeah.
Because you're like, where are we going with this? Like, what is this all leading to?
Yeah. Like, I think Barry Letts directed the shit out of this because,
yes,
it would be so easy for this to be like mind-numbingly boring.
Yeah.
But he was like,
or
no,
like,
everyone is going to be playing a wild character, so it's never boring. And everyone's going to talk quickly. We're going to get through these things at a clip, and we're going to add action where we can. But, like, I'm going to make this entertaining. And, like, he just wrecks house. Such a good story.
It really is like watching a Bond film.
Mm-hmm.
Like, now I think about it. Like, because it's like hammy, but it's like, it's like the right amount of everything.
Yeah.
It reminded me a lot of episodes of Clone Wars, where episodes of that show attempt espionage and political thriller vibes, but also never forgets that its primary audience is going to be young people. So it's not afraid of being too simple or being too clever for its own good. And it keeps things very like twisty turny, but also the characters are big and arch enough that you're like entertained by them. It's not quite, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Yeah. And it saves like big reveals that can like change the plot on a dime all of a sudden, where you're like, you think you have it figured out, and they're like, oh, no. We've only shown you like a third of what the plot of this is. And it's really cool. It's just the way that it's structured is really, really good.
So episode 3, Dennis is arrested. This is where we get the scene where Salamander, like, he puts the file of like all the blackmail documents away in his safe, and then he gives Fetterin this poison, and is like, I don't want to do dirty work. You do that if you want to be in like my government, you have to prove yourself, basically. And let's see. Victoria is in the kitchen. We have the best character in the story, Griffin.
I wanted him to become the head chef of the TARDIS, to be perfectly honest.
Oh my god.
Sure. Just anytime you hear, he peeks out and hears like laser fire from outside, and says, the food's not that bad. Ugh.
Right?
Yeah,
oh my god.
It was just like, ugh, the dinner's going to be cold again.
He has no bearing on the plot, but he like chews the scenery like nobody's business. He's so like funny.
He's like if McCoy was a chef instead of a doctor.
I'm probably gonna get fired tonight. Fuck it.
Oh, it's amazing. He also reminds me of the chef from Sopranos, Vito, who would like he was just trapped running this restaurant because like all of these made guys love his cooking and use this restaurant as a meeting place for all their stuff, so they'll never let him stop or close it. And somebody's like, you mean like I just remember this one episode, and Bethany and I quote it all the time. There's this one episode where somebody's like, hey, Tony and the guys, they just showed up, so we got to make this. I just cleaned up the kitchen. He's like, I just cleaned up the kitchen. I was gonna go out with my girlfriend, whatever. And Vito just grabs him and it's just like, you think I like living in this prison? Like, that is absolutely the vibe of this guy.
Oh my god. But he's like the gloomiest, like most dry, like, I don't know. I'm like obsessed with him. Like he's like, the food's terrible, and then he like leaves the room, and then like Faria's just like tastes the food, and she's just like, oh my god, this is delicious. He's a genius. Like he's like constantly like undercutting stuff. And then like there was one time that I forget if it's in this episode or the next one, but he's like musing aloud, like, oh, maybe they'll kill me because maybe they'll shoot me because the food's so bad, and then I won't have to worry anymore. I'm like, oh my god.
and there is a moment where Victoria is pushing the cart, and Fitterin bumps in with the intention of replacing the salt with poison, you think?
Mm-hmm.
And even he stops and tastes the food and like, oh, it's delicious. So yeah, he's like incredible at his craft, but he's cursed with this like gloomy self, like lethargy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like those scenes where like, you know, they'll like the Starfleet crew will be on like an away mission, and somebody will like break a leg or like get a real bad cut, and McCoy has to like use whatever's around to fix it, and then somebody will be like, wow, like Bones,
wow,
like,
Bones, really,
you're a genius, you really did it, you're a genius. Like, that is caveman work.
Don't insult medicine by calling that medicine.
Yeah, like that's totally like his vibe. Also, just to add on to the quote that you quoted, Cass, and he says, you know, oh, the food is terrible. Maybe they'll shoot me, and I won't have to worry about this anymore. And he goes, no, the firing squad would miss me too much. He's like, no, they'd never do it. The firing squad would miss me too much. I can't even expect to be shot.
He's like a ghost trapped in purgatory, but he's like a chef. I don't know, like.
Oh my god, I love him. I love him so much.
Oh man, I wish that he did more. But anyway,
yeah.
So
I think he's only in this episode, right? Because he has this Gordon Ramsay moment with Victoria, where Victoria's like, he's like, come up with a menu, and she just names. He's like, soup, fish, pudding, and he's like, oh, dessert, yeah, great. You're an idiot. Get out of go peel some potatoes.
Oh man. Let's see. So the main thing that happens in this, aside from best character ever, is Federin has the chance to poison the food, and he does not do so. And then let's see.
Salamander poisons his wine.
Yeah, he poisons him.
I cannot
instead.
believe this idiot trusted him. And he's like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. I was like, that seems very out of character. I don't know if you should accept the drink that he's giving you.
It's fine. Well, it'll be fine.
That comes up a couple times, and I had this thought that I wanted to run by both of you. There's a couple of times in the story where Salamander leads someone down an excruciatingly long path to death.
Yes.
And I had the thought of like, I at least a few times a month, just being out in the world, will think like, oh, I'm about to be murdered. Like, oh, that person's going to murder me. So I guess I can't imagine being in Fitterin's or another person later's place and not be like, is this person going to kill me?
Mm-hmm.
I know.
He's got a very trustworthy face.
Yeah. That's true. He does. Very Troutony face.
Yes. Oh, the other thing that happens in this episode is the doctor is with Kent still in Australia.
Right.
And they're trying to get into the research station. And this guy that was introduced earlier but doesn't really do anything shows up. His name is Bennick.
Doesn't really do anything.
No, like in earlier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, he shows up. No, he shows up and then like wrecks this trailer.
I was gonna say this. He might be my second favorite character behind the chef.
No, he like threatened. Like he's
such a slimy
little
son of a bitch.
Yes.
Oh my god. Speaking of salamanders, this guy's slimy.
Yeah. Oh my god.
It's such a it really stops the episode when he makes his entrance.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Where you're like, who is this?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, man, he is great in this, but he's like a little wasted not getting to be like the main villain of
Yes.
of an episode.
Yes.
Mm.
Because he's very much like not a stereotypical, because he doesn't shout really. The
He's a
shouty
weasel.
one is the security officer, but he's like the slimy, like conniving,
Yeah.
like fascist adjacent little
Yeah.
like
This guy is like a serial killer, like on the
Yes.
side. Like that's his hobby.
yes. He
Like-
tortures people for fun, as we
Yeah.
find out later.
Yeah.
Very Randall from Recess. Very
Yes. Oh my god, he is. Wow.
just opportunistic.
So
Yeah.
when I was watching this, when he was introduced in like episode 1, and he's like really smarmy with the security officer, Norman's like, "Oh, I like this guy," and then he like shows up again, and Norman's just like, "Oh my god, this guy's such an asshole. He's like a toxic twink." And I was like, "What?"
Wow. Doctor Who and the Toxic Twink.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But so he threatens Kent. He's like, "You better stay away," you know. He like completely trashes all of the like everything in this trailer that he's hiding out in, while the doctor hides. And Astrid is trying to break into the house in Central Europe to get Danish out. And Jamie kind of tries to engineer a distraction.
Mhm.
It doesn't go great. Astrid escapes, but the politician Danish is killed. And Jamie and Victoria are captured. And security officer Bruce finally has an opportunity to ask Salamander what he was doing in Australia, and he's just like, "I have no idea what you're talking about. I was here the entire time." And the episode ends with Bruce kind of coming to the idea that someone might be impersonating Salamander
Right.
is brought up.
Someone like you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then to hear that be the cliffhanger is like, oh, that's so cool that it's not like a monster hand reaching for a laser gun, you know?
Yeah. Monster hand reaching for a laser gun.
I mean, I can think of at least five times when that happened.
Well, it's just funny because it's a hat on a hat, you know? Like it's that's
Right, yeah, it's a monster hand and a laser
yeah, you
gun,
think it's just the monster hand, but no, it's grabbing a gun.
Kind of be scary if it was
And then
reaching for,
someone
like, a
shouts,
Colt.
"It's got a gun," and then you get a
Got a
three
gun.
for.
Doctor Who.
What were you gonna say, Nick?
Yeah, and a lot of great. I keep thinking about the close-ups in this episode, and how difficult that would have been to make compelling in a restoration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Man, it's good. That's it. That's it for our friend the chef, right? He's only in this episode.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, he gets
God.
his whole arc.
Man,
Yeah.
he doesn't get what he wants. He just
God,
wants to die.
he has such a sway over this story that I could have sworn.
I
he
thought
like
he was
half
in
of these.
episode 4 too, but I
Yeah.
guess not.
No,
That's fine.
yeah, wow, yeah. Last thing
And kind
we
of
see
Pariah too, like just really, really solid supporting characters in the story.
Mhm.
yeah, because she's only in like 2, right, or 3.
She's in
No, she's in 2, 3, and 4, right? She dies in 4.
Yeah, she dies in 4. Yeah.
Yeah, when she
Spoilers,
died,
guess.
I gasped.
Yeah,
Mm,
because I
mhm.
thought that she was going to make it to the end.
Yeah.
I really wanted her to.
There's almost enough here that you could take the Doctor out of this altogether, you know, and then like expand it into like a Game of Thrones-esque like
Plot. Yeah.
plotted, very character-y,
Yeah.
twisty turny, backstabby kind of
Like there's a whole episode about like the chef
series.
and like what his deal is, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
He feels like like Lord Baelish, like one of those Game of Thrones characters that you would just check in with every few episodes and be like, hey, he's still doing his thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man.
So
brutal.
episode 4 is where the twist kind of begins. So Kent and the Doctor are waiting for to hear back from Astrid about how things are going. When she finally does contact him, they have to go to like a secure channel because it's just like, oh, I don't want people listening in, because Bennick, the slimy son of a bitch, is indeed listening to their conversation. So he sends just these rando guards to like kind of check her out and like make sure, like try and figure out like who she is and what she's doing. And so in Australia, she gets back to Australia. She's explaining what happened at the house. Like Jamie and Victoria got kidnapped or captured. There's a knock on the door, and it's Salamander's servant Faria, and she has the file that we saw Salamander put in his safe a couple episodes ago, and she has it with her to like implicate him in like scandal. And this entire time the Doctor is just like, okay, but that's not proof that he's going to destroy the world like everyone keeps saying he is. And while this is happening, guards show up to like surround the office. The Doctor and Kent and Astrid get out, but Furia is captured, or she's shot, and then they try to get information out of her, and then she like dies.
Yeah, she has that scene where the Weasley guy has like a gun barrel to her cheek, and she's like, you can only kill me once.
Yeah,
bitch.
after she's already been
Fuck
shot
you.
when she was running away.
Somebody beat you to it, which is like Bond as hell.
Yeah, it's the most metal.
Like, God, so good.
But so they manage to get out, but she dies.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, like Salamander goes into this room that he calls the records room.
The records room.
He gets into this pod. He's like straps himself in, and
it's like a pneumatic tube at the bank. It's like a giant pneumatic tube at the drive-through at the bank is what it looks like.
And it was a real like, where the fuck is he going?
Yeah,
moment.
yeah.
Yeah.
So he goes down. It goes down into this bunker, this subterranean bunker where everyone is dressed like they're in a knockoff episode of Star Trek. With like I like because you were saying that the guys from the first episode were like the most 60s sci-fi thing, but like I think these guys are the most 60s sci-fi dressed people in this whole episode. But there's this bunker with a bunch of equipment, and apparently they're convinced that there was nuclear war. And Salamander is like their folk hero. Like he is like providing them food. He like changes his clothes so it's like all like gross and like beat up, and he pretends to have like radiation poisoning. And so like he has convinced these people in this bunker that there is nuclear war, and he's their only link to the outside world. And they haven't seen the surface in like 5 years.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's like The only thing I can compare it to, listeners, it's like an Eric Cartman level plot.
Yeah.
Because you're right, Cass. He comes down and he's like, "Oh, the radiation. It's so bad up there. I always just escape, but I was able to get you guys some food." And they're like, "Oh, Salamander, you're so cool.
Mhm.
Like, can we go up sometime?" Like, no, you can't. It's not dangerous. Oh, I'm so sick.
But you are right about the cool thing. I am pretty cool.
You do too much, Salamander. You work too hard. Oh no, I need you. You guys are the real heroes, making all those earthquakes.
Yeah,
because
so
like,
they
when do we find out exactly what his plan is with these guys? Like, what his like overarching plan involving all of this is?
I mean, you can kind of piece it together once you.
it's never explicitly stated.
Oh, okay.
I think the closest is like episode 6, where all hell breaks loose and like everything happens all at once. But so he's been using this bunker to create like the natural disasters that he has been predicting and like using to get control of the earth.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he ever like plans for them to come up to the surface again. Like he tells them like, oh, we have to wait till it's safe. But yeah, I don't know.
There's one supporting character I was quite fond of. His name was Colin.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the one, he has a lady friend named Mary.
Mm-hmm.
And they have like multiple little scenes, just the two of them. Like, oh, I want to see the surface, Mary. I want to go. If you think Salamander will lead us up there, and like the turn when he finds out that this dude has been like fucking with all of them for 5 years is so great.
Yeah. Yeah, because like basically, right, they're controlling the weather stuff. They're the cause of the weather stuff that he's been saying, forecasting or whatever. And so he's like it's like he's a magician on the surface, and they're the ones that are actually pulling the trick off, down there. And they have no idea that that's what they're doing. And it's just like it's the craziest manipulative plan.
Because like I don't know, I guess we'll talk about it at the end. But this episode ends with the Doctor and Kent and Astrid waiting to hear back from Faria, because she got separated from them when they were fleeing their little office safe house. And the door opens and we don't see who's on the other end of the door, and that's how the episode ends.
Yeah. See like shoes. See like a pair of shoes.
Yeah.
It's like
dun,
a really
dun,
great
dun.
Troughton close up.
Yeah.
So the person who's turned up is security officer Bruce. And he is basically, I like the misdirect with this character a lot, because like when he's introduced, he's like wearing like all black in like a very like I'm going to torture you sort of way. Like he has that vibe,
Yeah.
But he's like the most like level-headed. Like he's like, I want to know what's going on. I have questions. Answer them for me, and we're gonna get to the bottom of this. So he's like, he wants to know why the Doctor is impersonating Salamander. And he's like, well, he has my friends. I'm trying to get them back. And they kind of like walk him through their plan / thought process. And this is how they find out that Faria is dead. The Doctor agrees. The Doctor basically, like, in order to like win his trust over, because like Bruce shows up with a guard. The Doctor is just like, no one's gonna shoot anybody. Like, I don't want any more violence. The Doctor like disarms the guard and then like gives the gun back to Bruce after like making his point.
Yeah.
And like it's really cool. Like, he's just like, okay, so now you have no choice but to trust me because, like, you know, I just demonstrated that, like, I had your life in my hands, and now I'm giving that to you. Like, I'm giving that power to you.
It's a very cool, it's a great move. It's a cool character moment. And you're right, Cass, it's the moment where we, the audience, see Bruce in a different light of like, oh wait, like, can we trust this guy actually? Because the doctor has put his faith in him. And it kind of goes back to like, never really knowing who's who or what side people are really on or what they're really like.
Yeah, that moment to me is like, it's so quintessentially Doctor.
Yes.
That, you know, having this episode and getting to like, you know, this story and getting to watch every episode the way that we were intended to watch it,
right?
You know, and seeing Troughton's performance and the way that the Doctor is written in this story, and I just look at this and I just think like, wow, like this is. I feel like more people would credit Patrick Troughton as like the creator of what we now say is the Doctor as a character, like. You know, like William Hartnell did a lot of stuff early on, right? But he was like, I don't even know what this is really, but we're figuring it out as we go.
Right.
But I feel like it was Patrick Troughton who stepped in and was like, no, so like, I'm going to play this the way I want to play it. So I'm going to change things up. I'm going to make him a lot more quirky and weird and funny and charming and also never violent. And in any opportunity, try to outsmart violence. And that is so the Doctor, and that all started with Troughton. And I think that if more episodes of his era existed, he would get credited for that a lot more than he does currently, because currently it's like his era barely exists. The Third Doctor is so different from two that everyone now just sort of credits like, oh yeah, like Doctor Who didn't really find itself until the Fourth Doctor. And I just disagree. And I think this is the proof. I think this is the second Doctor is when Doctor Who found itself. And the Third Doctor is just this, you know, this weird thing where they tried a new thing. They're like, well, let's see how hard we can reinvent this thing and keep its shape, you know? And they bent that thing almost to the breaking point over the course of Pertwee's era. But I was so impressed with the scene, not just from like a Patrick Troughton standpoint and a like Doctor as a character standpoint, but just like Doctor Who as a show.
Yeah, like an institution.
Like an institution and what it represents. Like this is just like, this is quintessential Doctor Who. This scene. So good.
But yeah, I don't know. You can tell that Troughton is just having like the time of his life in this episode too, like not just like as the Doctor, because the Doctor's like in peak form like we were just talking about, but like with like Salamander too.
Yeah. Troughton gets to play the Doctor, Salamander, the Doctor playing Salamander.
Yes.
And later in the final episode, Salamander pretending to be the Doctor. So like he really ran the gamut with this one, and I just think that's really cool.
Let's see what else happened. Episode 5. The Doctor and Bruce break into the not break in. They like walk in because you know he looks like Salamander. They go into the research station. They have a run in with Bennick. This is where Bennick threatens Jamie and Victoria. It is not a fun scene to watch. I love how protective of Victoria Jamie is, because he like talks a big game about how he's like, we're not going to tell you anything, and then like as soon as Bennick like threatens Victoria, he's just like, no, like you don't hurt her.
Yeah.
But in the underground bunker, we have Colin slowly losing his mind about needing to see the sun. Relatable.
They meet this other guy named Swan who's like, come on, Colin, give us a smile. It's not so bad.
Yeah, Swan's like the leader down here.
Yeah, he's kind of like the supervisor.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah,
and he also starts to lose his mind. He finds a newspaper clipping like stuck to one of these food boxes that Salamander has like smuggled down here for them. And
It's like, world doing fine.
yeah, it's like a headline about a holiday,
air quotes smuggled.
Right, yeah, he just like put it in an elevator and just like,
he just purchased it and
yeah,
and sent it to
Costco,
sent it down a shaft. Yeah,
he
just went grocery
risked
shopping
radiation
for them.
poisoning for these rations.
Yeah.
It's like a box of milk.
It's the easiest grocery shopping ever because he can't get a cart and get a bunch of stuff for them. He has to just buy like one or two big boxes of things.
Yes, yeah.
Because that's how he would find it.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, yeah, I just have to buy like 5 boxes of a thing.
16 bags of marshmallows.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. That's what I could find.
Like, this episode is called Enemy of the World, and it fits. Like, this guy is an all-time bitch.
Yeah, it's true.
But Swan finds this newspaper clipping about like this cruise ship basically that like went like sank, and he's just like, if there's a war, why are there like fucking cruise ships? Like, what are you doing? Like, why? Like, and so Salamander's just like trying to cover his tracks, like, oh yeah, the war ended, but like there's mutants and like they have an evil society and blah 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 blah. So.
But they do go on vacation occasionally.
Yeah, I guess
that's what the cruise ship is. It's a cruise ship of mutants on holiday. It's a horrible place. Horrible.
So Swan's like, no, okay, so the next time you go up, you're gonna take me, and I'm gonna see for myself what's going on.
And he's like, fine.
Yes.
You'll see, all right.
And then Colin
the barrel
hears
of
that.
my gun.
He hears that, and he's like, I don't believe it. He didn't even ask. He didn't even ask to go.
Yeah.
I want to go up top.
Poor Colin.
He just starts banging on the door, and and his girlfriend's just like, it's too late. They're already gone. Can't even hear you.
Back up on the surface, when things look bad for Jamie and Victoria, Salamander walks in and is just like, okay, so, but we know the audience knows it's the Doctor, but Jamie and Victoria are convinced that it's Salamander because he's like questioning them. And I love the way that he proves his identity to them, where he just like pretends to be playing.
He's like miming the recorder,
and he whistles, and then Jamie finishes the whistle. It's so good.
And
they all
hey,
hug.
it is him.
Yeah.
And then they all hug him. Oh, it's good.
So Salamander leads Swan through this.
I also just want to call that out because before he walks into the room, like you've got that scene with like Bennick and like holding a gun to Victoria and like all of that, and it's just like Bennick is such a sleazeball.
Oh yeah,
and he's at his most sleazeballiness.
Yes,
in this episode, and it's so good. Like this actor is really good.
Yeah, he has that line where he's just like, I have a feeling that the prisoners are going to be difficult. I love it when the prisoners are difficult. I'm like, oh, that's a big red flag, buddy.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But Salamander leads Swan through this like cave system underground, where he like stores the food he finds allegedly. And you know, like Salamander just like bullshits the entire time, and he picks up a good old metal pipe. The implication is that he murders Swan, but he doesn't do a good enough job because Astrid and Kent, while the Doctor and Bruce are in the research center, they're kind of being held under guard in this like trailer. So Astrid, like they make it look like someone has shot Kent through the head when the guard comes to inspect what's going on. So she runs away, and then Kent gets up and infiltrates the research center.
Yeah,
and
tastes his wound.
Yeah, it's like ketchup or something.
Yeah, which I'm like, you wouldn't be able to smell that? Like, that
Right?
got really
Yeah.
close to him.
It's like a hot sauce.
Yeah.
So he goes to the research center, and Astrid runs away into like this field where she hears someone crying for help. And she finds Swan, who's like bleeding from his head, an actual head wound, and she asks who did this to him, and he says a man called Salamander, and that's how the episode ends.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this Bond movie would have been called.
Right? A man named Salamander.
A salamander.
Salamander. Ooh, it could be one of the one-word ones. Salamander.
Yeah, salamander.
Mm.
Who would sing that Bond song?
Shirley Bassey's still with us?
I don't know.
Salamander. Like that. You know?
Yeah, true. Oh, man.
So episode 6, Swan tells Astrid that, he's in the cave system. They like go to check it out. He wants to know how bad, like how the war was. Like he wants to know, and she's just like, "What are you talking about? There's no war." And then he tells her that there's a bunch of people in the bunker underneath them, and that Salamander's like was responsible, and then he just dies.
Mm-hmm.
So she knows about that now. So she goes down to see them. They freak out because they think she's like a radioactive mutant person. Colin, like they're gonna like beat her to death with like brooms or something. But Colin's just like, dude, no, like stop. Like that's a person. We have to talk to her. She came from the surface. And she basically like debunks all of the like the Geiger counter is like fake, and she like debunks all this stuff. Like
It's a sticker.
Yeah. She's just like, there was no war, like there's no radiation, like you've all been like, how did you end up down here? Unfortunately, the explanation for that happens off screen. And meanwhile on the surface, Bennick is kind of like wise to like he suspects that something is going on, because Salamander's supposed to be down in the records room that's like sealed from the inside, and then all of a sudden he's like here. The Jamie and Victoria are the doctor like as posing as Salamander lets Jamie and Victoria go. They're trying to escape the building. Kent finally shows up at the research center, and he reveals himself to be like the other half of this plot with the bunker. Like he and Salamander originally like worked together to like is it supposed to be like how long people can survive down here, or like
Oh, I don't know.
because it's like an endurance test, I think is the phrase, but
yeah, I don't know. I thought it was just sort of like a test. I don't know if it was just like a test of the systems. Like that's what they meant by an endurance test. But yeah, like while they're down there, they're like, "Oh man, all hell broke loose up top. You should be happy that you're down here, and you should probably stay down here."
He was like the initial one to lead them down there.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And kind of like pre-corroborate the story for Salamander, I guess.
Right. There were no sides, as it turns out. The doctor's sixth sense was correct.
His instinct's good.
Yeah.
Just like the Clone Wars.
So
heroes on both sides.
Yep, that's true.
But like now that Astrid, who's been working for this guy, knows the truth, she I love that her like priority then is like getting these poor people out from the bunker.
Yeah, I think at one point she's like, I made that man a promise before he died that I would help them.
Yeah.
I can't just leave them.
Yeah. And so there's like the cave underneath the research center is like lined with explosives for some reason.
I think he was going to like blow them up and leave them down there at one point.
That's so messed up.
He's an asshole.
Yeah. So Kent, Salamander's down there. There's like a, he shoots Kent. Kent blows up the cave. The research center is like collapsing. Jamie and Victoria get out and they're waiting for the doctor. And the doctor seemingly like shows up and he's all beat to hell, and he's got like
He's like Winona Ryder at the end of Heathers.
Yeah. He's like not talking. He's just kind of like stumbling around. They bring him into the TARDIS, and he tells, or he doesn't even tell Jamie. He like gestures at Jamie to like make the console go, and Jamie's like, "But you told us not to touch the thing." And then the actual doctor shows up.
He's like, "That's right, Jamie. I did. Thank you for listening. You're a good boy."
I'd never let you touch the TARDIS console.
And the episode ends with like someone pushes a button on the console. The TARDIS goes in.
Salamander does. He just pushes a random button.
Okay.
But the doors are open.
The doors are open,
Yeah.
and he gets ejected into the time stream, and then like that's the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Screaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a like fucking Jan de Bont, Jonathan McTiernan ass like action
Yeah.
movie ending.
True. So true. If you guys would like to hear, there's some follow up to what happened to him.
Oh.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So, your mileage of comic book continuity may vary, but this is like fairly recent. This comic book that came out.
Oh, does he bump into Doom?
I believe it was published in between 2016 and 2017. So, only like
pre-Doom.
a few. Really 8 years. What is that? 8 years? Yeah. So he fell. Now we know that the next episode is the Web of Fear. And Web of Fear takes place in the 60s when it's supposed to. He lands in the 60s. He basically like beats the TARDIS there, falling through the thing. And in the 60s, he spends the next like 5 years learning a British accent, mastering a British accent, finding out that the doctor has changed his face and is now working at UNIT, and then shows up at UNIT pretending to be the second doctor, and has an adventure with the third doctor and Joe, pretending to be the second doctor the whole time, and then the big reveal being like, "Oh, I'm actually Ramon Salamander.
What?
You guys are suckers."
I'm here to kill
And
you.
then like, yeah, and then like tries to take them down and UNIT.
And 3 shoots him down with a gun.
Yeah, I was reading
That's
this,
wild.
and I was like, "Oh, cool! It's like a cool like third doctor, second doctor, like multi-doctor story. That's fun." Nope. Sure isn't. But that's like, it's like a reveal, like the penultimate issue,
Yeah.
and then you find out what happened to him. But I was like, wow,
The
that's
Mad-Eye
such a
Moody
good,
reveal.
yeah, that's such a fun story. Fun story idea.
Mhm.
But, yeah, that's what happens to him. He does get arrested, but then he escapes. And now his whereabouts are unknown. But
He's still out there.
He's still out there somewhere in the 70s. Presumably. But yeah. Enemy of the
Great
World.
story.
Enemy of the
What a
world.
great
Yeah.
one.
What a banger.
What a banger. But speaking of bangers, Cass, you want to tell people what we're watching next week?
Next week is Curse of Peladon, my favorite third Doctor story.
Heck yeah.
I'm
That's
I'm
high
excited.
praise.
Is this the whodunit, or is that the follow-up to this?
I know that this is the good one.
Okay, yeah.
I think this is the whodunit one because there's more like the political intrigue, but it's like interstellar like alien politics instead of Earth
Right,
politics.
right.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. That's good. Excited about that.
This would be a vibe I'd be very welcome to Who returning to someday.
Yeah. I feel like they try every once in a while, but it doesn't quite nail it. Like I feel like what 11 tries to do in the Ganger two-parter with the evil Ganger doctor and then the second Neil Gaiman episode, which was like butchered, the Cybermen one. He's a evil like cyber mastermind in that too. I think in both of those cases, that's what they're trying to do, like an enemy of the world riff, and it doesn't quite work. I think Spyfall is definitely that as well.
Spyfall, jeez Louise.
Yeah.
That's kind of more a Pierce Brosnan Bond movie.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true.
This is like vintage Bond.
Yeah, and we got our James Bond riff in the Third Doctor in season 7. We already saw it.
Yeah.
The what is that episode called?
Mind of Evil?
Mind of Evil. Yep.
The one with the Chinese ambassador? Yeah.
Yes. Mind of Evil.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Excited to be back in 3 era next week.
Indeed. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. That's it. That's all we got for Enemy of the World. And yeah, we'll be back next week for some good Third Doctor shenanigans. Bye, everybody.